Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, joined today by two wonderful men. I have David Manyun and Matt Ryan. We're going to break down the entire main card for Figueiredo versus Benavidez. But before we get into any UFC talk, like always, go ahead, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show with us. Now let's get to it. How are you guys today? I hope you all are having a wonderful Wednesday. We have a fight card this night. So I'm just going to jump into the main card. I'm going to start off with flyweight Alexandre Pantoja versus Askar. Askarov, via BetOnline, Pantoja is -200 and Askarov is +170. Dave, I'm going to start off with you. Can you give me your breakdown for that fight and also your pick?
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Straight off the bat, we could have fight of the night with this one. Two prospects who I love both of them, so making a pick for this is really hard, but I am going to go with Pantoja. He's got the experience on his side. I'm watching him beat the crap out of Brandon Moreno like that, getting a draw with such little time on the UFC roster is really impressive, and he could easily be in Figueiredo's shoes right now. And that's another fight I want to see. I want to see number 2 Figueiredo versus Pantoja. I really do. He's incredible at grappling, dangerous with the submissions. He's also got heavy hands. The main difference between him and Askarov for me is going to be the volume. He's a high volume striker. And he does lack a little in the wrestling department, where Askarov is absolutely incredible. But I think his grappling skills and his scrambling ability is enough to stop that for at least more than half of the fight. Askarov, Russian, super dangerous. He trains out of Akami, which is not a huge gym, not a huge team, but he doesn't really need it. He's got one of the best ground games at flyweight, full stop. Now, he is one-dimensional, but that's okay, because when you're that good in one area, you can get away with it sometimes. He did look real tired in that third round. And against Brandon Moreno, Askarov. And for me, a guy like Pantoja riding high as he is, it's gotta be Pantoja for me. The experience, the heavy hands, and to be quite honest, I want to see Pantoja fight the best of this division. Let's just have Askarov take this Al. He can fight some lower ranked guys, build that experience up a bit more, and he can have his turn again. But for now, and I just want to see Pantoja. Yeah, it's Pantoja, Brazilian versus Russian. And I will say by decision, because Askarov is a tough dude. They're both tough. And I don't think either guy has been finished inside the distance. And as far as I know, Askarov's previous 5 or 6 fights have gone the distance. So, yeah, for me, it's Alexandre Pantoja.
All right. Well, Matt, do you want to piggyback on Dave? Do you agree with what he says in his pick? Can you give me your take for the Pantoja versus Askarov fight?
All right. So Askarov has taken my heart for one reason. His nickname is the Bullet. Outside of it being Valentina Shevchenko's nickname, it is also one of my favorite Misfits songs. So already off the jump, he's got me in my feelings. But Askarov, he's gone 1-0-1 inside the octagon. His last fight coming against Tim Elliott, where he got the win. And it was more of, as Mr. Manyun said, he's gotten the distance in every single fight he's been in since he joined the UFC. But before that, he was knocking out or submitting every single opponent in international competition. But Pantoja does have experience inside the octagon. He's been there longer. He knows this feeling. He knows this rhythm just a little bit more than Askarov. And they was talking about Davis and Figueiredo. These two have fought before. Pantoja fought Figueiredo before and lost to Figueiredo back in 2019. Both of these guys have not fought yet in 2020. For Pantoja, it was his last fight was against Matt Schnell back in December at UFC Busan in South Korea. I'm gonna agree with Dave. I'm going with Pantoja because of his octagon experience, because of the level of competition. And also, we've seen Askar go the distance. Like, he's a distance fighter. And as we've seen over the past few days, and we'll see a lot more during the course of this preview, it doesn't bode well for those who aren't more familiar or aren't more favored by the Endeavor-owned organization we're talking about.
All right, wonderful. I might be in on that with you guys with Pantoja. So if you do want to get in on that fight, again, via Bet Online, Pantoja is -200 and Askarov is +170. Now let's move on to the next fight. We have women's flyweight. Ariane Lipsky versus Luana Carolina. I'm looking forward to this fight too. Lipsky is -118 and Carolina is -102. Matt, I'm going to continue with you. Can you give me your breakdown and pick for that fight?
All right, Luana's riding a 6-fight win streak into this Saturday night on Yas Island. It's her second fight in the UFC if you don't count her Contender Series experience, and she's won her last 3 fights via decision. So she's riding in on a solid wave of momentum while Lipsky is 1-2 in her last 3, but she's fought against really solid competition in Molly McCann and Joanne Calderwood, which are the toughest opponents she's faced in her career. This is Lipsky's only 4th fight inside the octagon, and she's already got those 2 fighters on her resume. And she was a former KSW flyweight champion, so she's not some jabroni just off the street to face off against Carolina and be a sacrificial lamb like we might see in different pockets of these cards on Fight Island. This is a star-making situation for the UFC. They need more stars. They need more notable names, especially if all of them are going to be living in this oligarchical island. I'm taking Lipsky just because, and it goes back to experience with me, this is a unique situation for all people involved, dealing with fight weeks, dealing with the pressure, dealing with just the uniqueness of Yas Island. You need to kind of acclimate yourself to UFC culture, and this is quadrupling down on that. So I'm going to go more with the veterans on this card than anything because of these situations. We saw yesterday during the weigh-ins for tonight's card, 2 fighters miss weight. We saw 1 fighter have to wait until basically 10:59 to weigh in, and he needed the towel. So, and that was the guy fighting first on the prelims tonight on Plus. So with this card, we have a lot more question marks, and we're going to see a lot more question mark fights heading into the remainder of July. So for me, it's Lipsky.
All right. Now, Dave, how do you feel about this fight, Lipsky or Carolina?
Yeah, I have to agree. It's got to be Lipsky, and purely because just the experience right now. Look, Luana looked great in her debut, but this was against Priscilla Cachoeira, who is the lowest level of low that you can get in the UFC. And there was just not much you can take from a girl who just doesn't have that much experience in the UFC at the highest level. She's got some decent clinch work. I believe she's a BJJ blue belt. Her submission game is half decent, but that's, you can compare her to Lipsky because Lipsky is also a blue belt and has that, half decent ground game. We're not really sure where either of these girls excel to the fullest. But the difference being here that stands out is, the experience. Former CW flyweight champ, former Shock and Awe champ. She came to the UFC with hype. Her nickname is the Queen of Violence, which should be stripped from her unless she switches it up real quick. Because since she's arrived in the UFC, we've saw no royalty in terms of violence. That's for sure. Lipsy's got bad wrestling defense. She's not very good at returning to her feet, which may be a problem for her. But flip that, she's great on top. Yeah, it's Lipsky, probably by decision. This one, with a lot of these lower level female fights, I always say, oh yeah, the decision is certified. But even then, because they are so low level, it's not hard to slip in a rear naked choke or fail to an arm bar. So I will go with Lipsky. I'm not sure how. And yeah, I think the odds are fair because it's a close contest, but you do have to side with the experience, and that's in favor of Ariane Lipsky.
All right. Well, if you guys do want to get in on that fight, again, Lipsky is -118 and Carolina is -102. Now let's move on to the next fight. We have lightweight Marc Diakiese versus Rafael Fiziev via Bet Online. Diakiese is -155 and Fiziev is +135. Dave, I'm going to continue with you. Can you give me your breakdown and pick for that fight?
I sure can. You might already know who I'm on with, country bias. Matt Diakiese is from my part of the world, and I love him. I'm not going to back him just because he is English, but he has improved incredibly. He is 14-3-0, and them 3 losses all came inside the UFC. He is currently training at Golden Team Thai Boxing, which is up north in England. And I believe during his losses, he had switched camp and he was training in America. Now, I can't remember exactly what the gyms were. I think it was a bit of bad advice that Diakiese received because he started to focus on wrestling. Now, if you're an incredible striker and you're doing well, why are you just going to go and switch camps and then go start focusing on your wrestling? Well, as we saw, it didn't work out for him, and he was on a losing streak. It was looking rough for Diakiese at one point, and he could have been close to that dreaded lose your job fight. But the consistent training through the pandemic has been epic, and since that loss, he come back with 2 wins, and he is just looking much more impressive on the feet. Go look on his Instagram right now. This guy does not look like a lightweight fighter. His arms are jacked. And when I see a person online and they're constantly posting pictures or videos from inside the gym and they're constantly just showing you that they're in the gym full time, that's always a great sign. He made them changes after that 3-fight losing streak, went back to Leeds, went back to his original gym, got himself on a 2-fight win streak. And, similar to Kelvin Gastelum, he's grew up in the UFC, really. 50% of his professional fights have been under the UFC banner now. That's some serious experience to be jealous of. And he's also been working with professional boxers in his hometown of Doncaster, Lee Connolly being one of them. That's some information that I like to give out there. His striking is serious. Very traditional martial artist as well. So it's not just the striking that he offers. His losses are tough to judge just because I think the change in gym really did affect him. Diakiese's got power in all of his strikes and he throws a multitude of them. You don't know what's coming. A kick, punch, spinning kick, spinning back fist. You don't really know what's coming from because he mixes it up really well. Now he's fighting a guy in Rafael Fiziev who's 7-1-0. He's actually a coach at Tiger Muay Thai, which, that's something to say in itself. Now, he does have small experience, especially in the UFC. His debut was a tough outing, and I think he underestimated how serious Magomed Mustafayev is because he decapitated him in the first level. And, I think he went on record to say he was embarrassed about that loss. Now, low-level Alex White, he beat by decision and he did it convincingly. I don't want to disrespect Fiziev here, but I just don't think he's ready for the experience of Diakiese. It's going to be a one-dimensional fight for Fiziev, in my opinion. He's going to have to rely on his striking. Whereas if Diakiese does fall in that striking department, he can pick it up with some grappling because he's got some great body locks and some great trips in his arsenal. Yeah, so without the bias, I am going to side with Diakiese. I like the explosiveness from his striking. He's a real quick starter. In fact, both guys are a quick starter, which could equal for a real explosive first round and potential knockout. Diakiese is so light on his feet. I love it. Diakiese for me. I don't want to go into how, but I'd probably say decision because both guys are so tough. I can see them taking them shots to the chin and maybe giving us a fight of the night in this one.
All right, Matt, how about you? Can you give me your breakdown and pick for Diakiese and Fiziev?
I'm also going to go with Diakiese. It comes down once again, Fiziev, he may be a great coach. He may be a proficient striker, but sometimes great coaches are not great fighters. That could be, sometimes they don't translate, or sometimes you're looking at things too analytically and you can't step in and be in the moment. That's how you underestimate an opponent. That's how you don't look at things the right way. And Dave was right. Sometimes we look at it in sports. You look at some of the best coaches or some of the best managers in the history of baseball. They're not necessarily the best players. Billy Martin, one of the smartest minds in baseball history, was a jamoke second baseman. Sometimes great players don't make great coaches, and we can see that translate into mixed martial arts as well. Diakiese did go 2-3 in his last 5, as Dave said, but one of them was against Dan Hooker. So you could see, like, he's not – it goes back to him not fighting jabronis. He's not fighting, just run-of-the-mill guys like we've seen with some of the other fighters on this card. If this fight stays standing, Fiziev does have the advantage, but that boxing background, it's a bigger octagon, so we're not going to have the piñata party we had at the Apex, which still makes me sad. RIP, smaller octagon. But Diakiese, he's got the momentum. He's 2-3 in his last 5, as we said, and those are 2 straight wins. But Fiziev does have something to prove. He does have his gym on his back. He is a lead coach, so that goes into it as well. So I'm going Diakiese, but if Fiziev gets him quick with a right hook, or is able to get him in a clinch and knee his head over to from Yaz Island to another island in the UAE, it may happen. But take the smart money, take Diakiese.
All right. Well, if you guys do want to get in on that fight again, Diakiese is -155 and Fiziev is +135. Now let's move on to the next event. We have middleweight Jack Hermansson versus Kelvin Gastelum. Gastelum is -120 and Hermansson +100. Matt, I'm going to continue with you. Can you give me your breakdown and pick for that fight?
Oh, finally we have a fight that's got a little bit of meat to it. It's a vet fight. You gotta love a fight between 2 guys in the UFC, especially in this middleweight division, who are looking to scratch and claw their way into conversation. This is the first fight I really do care about on the card. This one has star power, which is lacking in some of these Fight Island cards. Once you get past the co-main event, there's not a lot of depth to these cards, but we've been surprised in the past. For Gastelum, he's coming off of 2 losses to Darren Till and Israel Adesanya, but those are not losses to scoff at. This is the first losing streak in Gastelum's career, and this is a vet inside the octagon. This is a guy that's been against some of the best competition in the world, and this is the first time in his career he's seen a losing streak. Right now, Gastelum is going up against Hermansson, who's coming off a second-round TKO loss to Jared Cannonier. When you compare the resumes, Gastelum's the better fighter overall. Gastelum has the more experience inside the octagon. He's got the more diverse set of opponents. But him and the UFC are not on the best of terms. This could be a setup fight for Hermansson, because Gastelum's been popped twice for smoking pot. And the UFC's still weird about weed, but it's 2020, so they're kind of all over the place. But Hermansson's got a unanimous decision win. This is a big key here when it comes to common opponents. He's got a big win, a unanimous decision win over Jacare. While Gastelum did beat Jacare, but it was by split decision. Decisions haven't been kind to Gastelum. He's had 4 of his losses in his career coming that way, and the way we've seen judging go down on Yaz Island, who the hell knows what will happen? My heart says Gastelum, but the further this fight goes, if Gastelum's not able to stop Hermansson the same way Cannonier stopped Hermansson, you may have a live dog in this fight.
All right. Well, Dave, I'm going to read you the odds again. Gastelum is -120 and Hermansson is +100. Can you give me your breakdown and pick for that fight? And also just give me your thoughts on those odds.
Yeah, this is tough for me, because I see Hermansson, his path to victory to win this fight really would be on the ground for me. I don't think he has the striking accolades of what Kelvin Gastelum has. I think he's going to get absolutely outclassed on the feet. Yeah, Gastelum has been on this losing streak to the best in the world. Look, the Israel Adesanya fight, that could have gone either way. Let's not mess around. Gastelum gave it against, we could arguably say the best striker in the division, because he is the champion. And now he's got a guy in Jack Hermansson, who I feel needed this to be a 5-round fight. I think he is going to do better in the later rounds when Gastelum is tired. A 3-round fight for Gastelum I think it's perfect. He came up, won through tough, like I mentioned with Diakiese. He spent majority of his professional career in the UFC. For the past 7 years, he's grew up here. He went from a 5-0 fighter to a 15-5 fighter. That's 70-80% of his fights taken place in the best martial arts company on the planet. Now, perception's great because everyone has their own, right? Now, does starting in the UFC at age 21 with a small amount of experience provide a truly elite way to evolve your game? Or does it damage your longevity when you're taking blows from the likes of Tyrone Woodley, Johnny Hendricks so early on in your career? I mean, I'm not sure. I think we'd have to bring that one down to genetics. But Gastelum has one of the most impressive resumes, given the age he was during some of these contests. The kid was fighting killers when he was 23 and 24. I think this is an easy fight for Gastelum if it stays on the feet. He's a power puncher, very laid back, always comes on the inside gradually. And he doesn't force himself on the inside. He gradually gets on the inside to land his power strikes because more often than not, he's going to suffer the reach advantage. Another thing, he's a big boy. He's in the middleweight division because he's got a big body, and it doesn't matter how much weight he loses. He's going to have to start shredding muscle. And if you shred muscle to get into the lower divisions, you're going to damage your chin and your drawability. So people giving Gastelum slack about his weight should probably shut up and look at Daniel Cormier, for example. Height does not mean nothing. It does not. Well, it does if you got the skills to go with it. But height, it's not all that. And Jack Hermansson is going to have the height, but I just don't see the striking from Hermansson that I do with Gastelum. For me, this is wrestling versus striking. And I wouldn't say Hermansson is so much a wrestler, more of a grappler. It's more of a body lock, tripping type of, grappling offense for Hermansson. I'm just not sure he's going to be able to keep Gastelum there, even if he wants to take it there. Gastelum's fought high-level wrestlers, and look, I wouldn't say he's had the best takedown defense, but it's solid enough to fend off someone like Hermansson. I think it's simple. Gastelum's going to dominate the striking, while Hermansson's going to need some sort of ground game. Now, as I mentioned before, I think a 5-round fight would favor Hermansson just because of his the way he keeps going and going in these fights is ridiculous. He's very efficient. And what was the fight he had? I need to go back and look now. 1 second, because it was the second round and he had 100 strikes. And I was like, what? The Souza fight, of course, Jacare Souza fight. I think he tallied over 200 strikes total. And this is a middleweight who could fight at light heavyweight. That's a pretty impressive cardio to go by. So yeah, I would think it would favor Hermansson because I think he could start to land some of these just taps, similar to Nate Diaz. They're not so much big blows. They're probably 30-40% of effort put into them, but they land and they put that strike counter up and they win decisions. But that aside, I'm going to side with the southpaw in Gastelum. I think he'll have too much on the feet for Hermansson, and he could even put him out. Jared Cannonier is a wild one, and he put Hermansson out. I know it's two different total fighters, but it just shows that he can be put away and quite easily because Jared did it no problems. I think Gastelum can do the same.
All right, again, if you guys want to get on this fight via BetOnline, Gastelum's -120 and Hermansson's +100. Now let's move on to the main event. We have flyweight Davison Figueiredo versus Joseph Benavidez via BetOnline. Figueiredo is -210 and Benavidez is +180. Dave, I'm going to continue with you. Can you give me the breakdown for the main event? And again, give me your take on those odds.
Wow, what a drama-filled little storyline we have here. We got Joseph Benavidez claiming that Figueiredo intentionally headbutted him in their first fight, which subsequently cost the TKO loss. That's wrong. That's wrong. You can slow that fight down and look at it quite clearly. Joseph Benavidez closing his eyes, throwing his wild looping strikes. It gets caught by the head. It was accidental. Nobody intentionally meant for a headbutt there, but it's a good narrative to go on when you've lost your third title shot. Concussion symptoms. I mean, Joe B has been complaining about depression and crying. Now, I know this is a bit offside to breaking down fights and fight analysis, but this plays a part in handicapping. You're moaning about depression and crying after a severe knockout. And this is his fourth title shot. And it's rough losing, having that shot and doing it 3 times. I think there's only one other person that's done that, and that was Uriah Faber. Very reminiscent of Uriah Faber and the alpha male guys. It's tough, man. I mean, I like referee Big John McCarthy, and I was listening to his podcast the other day, and he has a rule of 3. So it's, when it's the third time, he needs to start thinking about what's good. And I believe this Benavidez is on his third knockout or second knockout, and he's complaining about depression. It's not good in terms of when you think about CTE and things like that, especially when you're fighting a guy with the power of Figueiredo. Now, a near perfect record with one loss. Incredible, especially in this division. The talent that's floating around these lower divisions right now. He's one of the few flyweights that holds a serious knockout threat. Now, he missed the weight in the previous fight, which is a big question mark. I think if we can get a fully fit Figueiredo who can make weight without no problems, Benavidez is going to really, really struggle. And I think that Figueiredo could do this maybe even quicker, maybe even sooner than the first fight ended. The headbutt is not needed. Figueiredo has that power with or without a headbutt involved. What did you say the odds were? Is it minus 220 now?
Figueiredo's minus 210 and Benavidez is plus 180.
Yeah. You look about 65% implied probability. I'd take that all day with Figueiredo, I think. I don't want to totally discredit Benavidez because he's been around for a while and he's got such an exciting style, but his style is high risk. He keeps his hands low, wild punches and kicks that do give him and have gave him a lot of great finishers, but he's constantly putting himself at risk. I'm real surprised I haven't seen Benavidez be caught a few more times, to be honest. He's got difficult to predict patterns in his striking, but Figueiredo is so laid back, and you could just see him visualizing what's going on, and he knew exactly what he was doing when he threw that straight right and knocked him out. I have to side with Figueiredo, and I have to cut this breakdown short because we ain't got much time left. So for me, it's Figueiredo.
Awesome. Now, Matt, can you give me your breakdown for Figueiredo versus Benavidez? And also, do you think this fight will go the distance, or do you think it'll stay within the distance, Matt?
So this fight, I feel like it's a Fabergé egg. We really can't touch it until Friday. We can't touch it until 11 a.m. New York time on Friday after everybody's weighed in. Because Deiveson Figueiredo had a false positive for a COVID-19 test. This fight a few days ago wasn't even happening. And then Figueiredo has to plane, trains, and automobiles himself from Brazil to Vegas to Abu Dhabi. So you're already throwing a severe monkey wrench into a fight that basically was thrown up in the air last time because Figueiredo missed weight, and that's with a full camp, non-quarantine conditions, and this is a huge question mark fight to me because what happens if Figueiredo misses weight again? Not only does that throw the odds up in the air, that could put Benavidez in a situation to say, I'm not fighting him. The last time he missed weight and he used that as an advantage and he headbutted me, you're stacking the deck against me in my fourth time trying to win a title, third time trying to win a title. And it's a great out for Benavidez, and I don't want to say that in a negative way. Benavidez is a gamer. He's a tough fighter. He is someone that when you look at, he's one of the last cowboys in MMA, one of those last old school show up, fight, try not to make excuses, give everything he's got in a division that is in serious trouble. It's a deep division, but you lost Demetrius Johnson, you've lost Henry Cejudo, and now they're trying to build up Figueiredo, who's got a great backstory. The guy was a bricklayer and a hairdresser before he started handing out concussions like candy. So this guy is someone you can build a division around, but if he misses weight again, even with all the extemporaneous circumstances, it might be the death knell for this division, and you don't want to see that. But if Figueiredo does make weight, if Benavidez does make weight, history stacks against Benavidez. When it comes to rematches where he's lost the first fight, he's 0-2. Of course, that's to Demetrius Johnson and Dominic Cruz, two certified legends. But Figueiredo has only one loss as a professional, as Dave said, and he beat the ever-loving snot out of Benavidez the last time. This fight is so hard to pick because of all the different circumstances. But if you're looking to lay money down, the smart money's on Figueiredo because he's got so many advantages heading into the fight. It's just a question of whether or not they're going to put a belt around his waist at the end of Saturday night.
Yep. All right. Well, again, if you guys do want to get in on this fight, via Bet Online, Figueiredo is -210 and Benavidez is +180. Now, that's all I have for UFC Fight Night, Figueiredo versus Benavidez. That's going to take place this Saturday, July 18th. And don't forget, we have UFC Fight Island this entire week. We have a fight tonight. We have Cater versus Ige. If you need picks and to see the main card breakdown, definitely head on over to SBR's YouTube page at SBR Sports and check out our main card breakdown for Cater versus Ige. And also, if you aren't following the guys on Twitter, you can follow Dave at @DManyun_ and Matt at @MRyan Consulting. So I hope you guys have a wonderful fight week. Best of luck, and until next time.